CBS 46 News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Good Sunday morning to you. Thank you for joining us for Public Affairs on Peach. I'm your host, Adam Murphy. Today we're talking about gender inequality. What does it really mean, especially for women in the workplace? And on the show today is a woman who we all know if you live in the Atlanta area. She knows everything about women empowerment. This is Cynthia Good. Thanks for being on the program.
Thanks, Adam, for having me.
Thank you. And you're the founder and CEO of the Little Pink Book. I want to get into that first. What is the Little Pink Book?
It's really a digital resource for career women to help women advance in the workplace and achieve their career and life goals. And we do it through our online content and lots of inspiration through social media. And also we hold events. And they're based here in Atlanta, but they're also available for women all over the world. And
this inspires women to take leadership roles, I presume, and get involved and climb the ladder, right?
Absolutely. Because if women can see what some of the other women are doing, still today we have very few senior level women in key roles in business. So if the rest of us can see how they did it and how they, the decisions they made, then we have more clarity around what path we can choose for ourselves.
So if we want to find more information about your business and also the book, how do we do that? What's your website?
Well, littlepinkbook.com, and all the information's there. We're actually having an event, our 10th anniversary Fall Empowerment event coming up in November, and we just went live with registration for that. We'll bring in some of the most senior level women in the business to have on the panel so that you can meet them in person and ask questions and also network with other women who are ambitious and really making things happen in the world today.
So where are we today? Have we closed the gap? Because we know that men have most leadership roles, but a woman's perspective is so important. And are women closing that gap?
Well, a little bit. It's been really slow and steady. I can tell you there are a record number of women in leadership roles today, but we've seen the numbers just barely budge over the last decade. Right now, we're at just under 5% of female CEOs in the Fortune 500. When we launched the business, it was 3%, so it's just gone up a couple percentage points.
And you've been doing this for 10 years, so that's...
Yeah, and before we launched Pink, we launched a women's business magazine here in town called Atlanta Woman Magazine. So women have been at it a while, and I think now, to your point, you've got the show, there's really a buzz going, and I think some of the younger women are less apt to tolerate some of the inequities we're still seeing, so that's a good thing.
And there are some ads online and on television trying to empower women, right? And so that's the buzz you're referring to right now. That's out there.
Right. I think people are getting more outspoken, and calling it out, which is a good thing.
And so, what about the pay gap for women? Obviously, it looks as though from research that men are still significantly ahead of women as far as pay goes in corporations. Is that changing? Do you see that closing?
Well, pretty much it's been stuck at about 80 cents on the dollar, depending on what study you look at. But I think that's really the big issue and why the buzz is so important, because I think commonly people tend to think, well, women are running things. The women who are in leadership roles today in business and politics, they get a lot of exposure, right? So you even mentioned before the show, well, it seems like women are in charge, but the reality is they aren't. Still about 10% of the companies in the Fortune 500 have 0 women on their board of directors. Nobody. It's just unconscionable. Still only about 8% of the highest earners in the Fortune 500 are women. 14% of the executive offices are held by women. And that CEO suite is still out of reach by and large for women.
And like it or not, guys, women make great decisions. So it's so important to have a female perspective.
Well, right. And, the point there really is, yes, it's the right thing to do. Certainly it's bad optics for organizations that don't have more women in those roles. But there's really a huge business case for this. And the best study that I can cite is just the landmark study done years ago by Catalyst that showed that the companies with the largest number of women in executive offices had a 34% higher total return to shareholders. And, even today, if you look at the Fortune 1,000, with 5% of the CEOs are women, but those 5% account for 7% of the revenue. So, you see, it makes sense because it drops down to the bottom line.
Now, one of the things you talked about on your website that we saw was that women aren't asking for raises or for promotions as much as maybe men might be. So where are we as far as that is concerned? What can women do to get that raise, to get that promotion?
Yeah, Adam, I think that's really the key thing that we need to remind ourselves and take a big breath and take the risks and step up and ask for what we want in a way that contributes to the organization significantly and dare to be visible. I always say step up to stand out. We're not doing that enough. Women tend to want to be able to really know how to do the job before they raise their hand and they said, I'll do it. But we've got to just the same, and I think that's an important lesson.
Is there a disconnect that's going on, or is it just that it's always been this way? Where women kind of lag behind somewhat in the
Well, yeah,
business world.
you tend to see it in offices all over the country. Certainly I see it in my office that women, they come in early, they stay late, it's nose to the grindstone, and it's the men who are saying, look what I did, or the men are the ones who are on the golf course building those important relationships, and as a result, everybody knows the contributions they're making because they're talking about it. So they're the ones who are tapped for the promotions.
And Cynthia, what is it that some companies are doing that are allowing women to move into leadership roles that other companies aren't? Where women
Really
lag
good
behind?
question, because women can lean in really, really hard, and we can talk about some more of the specific things that women can do, but organizations will need to change too, because the corporate culture today is pretty much the same as it was many, many years ago, 10 years ago when we launched the business. And it's going to take, I believe, and I've seen it, some of the successful companies like the Home Depot, the Coca-Cola Company, General Mills, and others, it's going to take the C-suite deciding, ooh, we've got a problem here. We need to change this. And you can grow whatever it is you measure. So to really take a look at those statistics and decide, okay, over the next 3 years, this is how we want to shift it. That's the Coca-Cola Company, for instance, has done that very effectively. And then we can make it happen.
And you've had some success in helping companies make that shift. So what is it that seems to be working?
Well, we're doing on the consulting side of the business some work with organizations that have made a conscious decision, not just from the diversity and HR departments, but from the C-suite, that they want to change the numbers and identify more high potential women and bring them up through the ranks. So, for instance, we did some work with AIG. They were ready and determined to do it. We identified 16 women globally in the company who were high potentials, and I can tell you that after we did that work, and it took more than a year, 100% of the women were promoted, many of them 2 and 3 times. They had 100% retention during that period of time, and the women loved really being part of it, and I think everyone benefited, and they're calling it their legacy work, which is a very rewarding thing, I think, for all involved.
Sure. And what is it, in your opinion, that women bring to the table that men can't?
Well, everybody brings something different, and that's key too, is just to encourage women. Remember, you used to have to go to work and sort of be the man in a skirt. You had to be like the guys. You had to assimilate and fit in. And now what we're seeing is there is real power, the most power, in everyone, whether you're a woman or any kind of minority, bringing their whole self into the workplace. And we talk about that in some of the Minute Mentor videos we do, and that's when I think it's rich, because look, women are making more than 80% of all the consumer purchasing decisions. So certainly you want women, in the room deciding how you're going to create new brands and how you're going to market them to the public, because they're the buyers.
Great stuff, Cynthia. And coming up here a little bit later on the show, you're going to talk about tips for women to be successful in life and in the workplace.
Sure.
Great stuff, Cynthia. Coming up, though, first, we are talking about where those high-paying jobs are for women in the workplace. And we step inside the walls of one tech giant who no longer sees it as a man's world. Come back right after this for Public Affairs on Peach.